Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, October 13th, I think. It is 2022. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts 25 and change. It's Thursday, so you know who's here. The Dean, Bill Kurelic, Mark Porter of Scouting Ohio join us. Gentlemen, how goes it on a crisp fall Thursday, excuse me.
Crisp.
It's crisp.
Going all right here. Sun is out after rain last night.
Oh, yeah. We lost. By the way, that's why my internet is going to be spotty today. So I apologize. We are the worst here in the Gem City when it comes to internet interference. I have a broadband line or the fancy one put in here as soon as possible. So I appreciate your patience. We asked for questions from the Bucknutters, and we got a ton. So we were going to start with those. Fox R 2001. Talking about Ohio recruits in the class of 2024. Who do they think will be the top ranked prospects from Ohio, the 5 stars and the high 4 stars in the class of 2024 by the time the cycle's over? And who do you think Ohio State will drill down on in the class of 2024? Mark, take the floor.
Well, this is a big question, and there's a lot of names to bring up when you talk about the top players in 24. Bryce West, the DB from Glenville, and Aaron Scott, the DB from Springfield, are two of the best. And when you have two corners like that in Ohio at a premium position like that, they'll probably be at top of most people's lists. Elias Rudolph, the pass rusher down at Cincinnati Taft with the Ohio State offer. I watched him earlier this year. He has earned his ranking. If he's not a 5-star eventually, that would surprise me. He's probably a 4-star right now. Luke Hamilton, the offensive lineman at Avon, and Ben Roebuck, the offensive lineman at St. Edwards. And let's put Freddie Johnson from Glenville in that echelon of linemen. Those are the 3 guys that are leading the way there. So Ohio State hasn't offered a lineman yet in Ohio for 2002-04. Look at those 3 guys first. Brian Robinson from Fitch has one of the best offer lists in Ohio right now. He was at the Ohio State camp this summer. He'll be a hot name that's going to be talked about a lot as we get out in the offseason. Garrett Stover at Big Walnut, just did a video on him. He's another guy that's going to be in that top 10, the 4-star, hoping to be a 5-star. Jordan Marshall from Moeller, the running back. I just saw him this weekend. We just did him in the weekly breakdown. Tavion Galloway, who's already committed to LSU from Chillicothe, is a name that has a decorated offer list. Will he stay committed to LSU? As you know, once these season starts and teams start winning or losing, things like that starts to change. Timothy Carpenter, a quarterback athlete at Trotwood Madison, is going to be a guy that everybody's got to look at just because his size-speed ratio. Gavin Grover might be the best tight end in the class from Olentangy High School. Terrion Nichols is a guy that has the track times down at Withrow and a Notre Dame offer and other offers where he got a little taller this year. He's going to be a defensive back that hopes to be named with Bryce Scott and Aaron Scott and Bryce West. Samuel Williams-Dixon, the running back from West Holmes. Brendan Zerber, the quarterback at Alliance, ties to Michigan, might be the best quarterback in the class. Dominic Kirks is a player I like as a sleeper out of Villa Angela St. Joseph. He's a giant defensive end, might be able to play offensive line, really athletic. How long do you guys want me to go on 2024, Bill? I might be stealing some of Bill's answer here and some of his thunder, but this early in the year, I haven't seen everybody yet. We're literally at the halfway point, week 8. We have till week 16. So I haven't laid eyeballs on some of these kids since summer or last year. And as we get through this, and then as I get into the film session at the end of the year, I could tighten this list up for you. But there's a lot of ways you can go with this list. The Armstrong brothers at St. Ed's both look much better, I should say. Like a year ago, I'd be like, they're probably not Ohio State. Saw them, a couple of weeks ago, and every time I see them, I'm like, unbelievable. So sleepers in the class and, fast risers, there's a pretty good chunk of names that, chew on.
Bill, who exactly do you know for a fact now? Mark gave us the big list. Let's slice that down to the filet mignon of the guys you know for a fact right now that Ohio State's way into.
I forgot Damari Winton from Glenville.
Yep. We can start there. He's one that they are going after. Obviously the two corners. I'm pretty sure Mark has seen him in person play this year. I know I have. Weston Scott. I was talking just yesterday with someone that High State's going to take at least 3 corners in the 2024 class. They can take care of a whole lot of their needs right here in Ohio by getting Weston Scott. And to be honest, I think that they would be the school to beat for both of them, in my opinion. So they can get a lot of their needs filled right here in Ohio with those two. It's kind of like offensive line this year. They were able to get almost all their needs on the offensive line for 2023 filled from the state of Ohio. Jordan Marshall's a guy that I really like. Saw him a few weeks ago, and he's not the absolute burner, but he's good. He's very good. I like him a lot. He'll make people miss. He'll run you over. Another guy Mark mentioned, Elias Rudolph. I like a High State's chances generally with him. He's a really good edge guy that I think a High State's got a pretty realistic chance to land. Garrett Stover, saw him a couple weeks ago. I think he's a little bit more of a linebacker than a safety, but he's being recruited as the hybrid guy, linebacker safety. And I've got him crystal ball to Ohio State. We mentioned Witten. They offered him. And those are the guys right now that they're really drilled down on in Ohio.
Yeah, it's very fortunate when you have a year in the state and bring in 2 elite guys. I think about the defensive line where they got Jack Sawyer and Mike Hall in one class. To get Scott and West in one class is almost asking for too much. You can make an argument they're 2 of the top 5 corners in the country. I mean, if you look at their physical, their pedigree in terms of quality of play, I mean, Glenville and Springfield play a great schedule, so that would be huge. I think we covered the sleepers there. They're still asleep. We covered enough of them. Clubber 68, Mark, have you scouted running back Nate Zerber from Big Walnut? Clubber 68 went to high school with his mom, so he's pumped.
Yeah, tell his mom they have a great looking player on their hands. What I like about him is he's a little bit over 200 pounds. They're listed that way as a running back. And boy, he's got some speed, power. He kind of has the cutting ability that looks unusual for his size. He puts his foot in the ground and gets downhill. I could see why there'd be college interest in him. At the end of the day, does he have major college breakaway speed? Probably not. But he's probably a college football player, even if it's not on the offensive side of the ball. Probably could be a strong safety or some type of linebacker in college. But turn on the film of him, and he is really impressive running the ball. I mean, at 200 pounds, you're going to be a powerful runner in high school, and he does that. But then the changeup is the speed he has and the cutting ability. So, yeah, nice-looking player. This summer, I think summer camps would have a lot to do with where he would end up. If he's a high academic kid, that would help out. But, this being MAC territory, I'm sure those schools are going to kick the tires on him pretty hard because he has a nice skill set.
I might add that I also saw him a few weeks ago and did not know that much about him because, High State's not actively recruiting him at this point, but he stood out to me. He had a really nice game. He was kind of a workhorse that night. He, like Mark said, maybe doesn't have the elite speed, but he's just a good football player. They went to him. He was their main guy offensively that night, and for good reason. He's a good football player, no doubt.
Probably wishes Trussell was still the head coach, but Nutso. Either Mark, Bill, or Dan. I have a good one of these, so I can go. Who is the best multi-sport high school athlete you've ever seen in person? We discussed this a little bit before the show. Mark never goes to any sporting events that don't have pigskin, so he's going to beg out. Bill, you had some interesting ones, and then I'll close it off. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, when I first saw that, I thought my line of thinking went straight to the state of Ohio. So I kind of thought of two kids. One of them is one of my 2 best players I've ever seen in person, period, football-wise. That would be the Big O, or Orlando Pace. He was a mountain on the basketball court too. And I think he was a pretty good football player, as I recall. Like maybe NFL Hall of Fame type guy, no doubt about her. So the Big O would be one of them. And then I kind of thought to a guy that I wasn't quite doing this. But when he was in high school, but I saw him play both football and basketball. And that was a guy that kind of, unfortunately, is still in the news, not necessarily for the best reasons, but that'd be Art Schleister. He was a really talented guard in basketball, and I'm a hoops guy, as a lot of people know. I'm a basketball coach, old basketball coach. I guess I emphasized the word old there, but that was my area. And I really liked Art Schleister as a basketball player, too. He went to Ohio State, by the way, with the intention of maybe giving both a shot and going that direction. But I really thought he was a super talented guy in both sports. And I'm going to go out of Ohio for one more. Terrell Pryor, quarterback, basketball player, track athlete. I mean, the kid was just unbelievably gifted. Another one I saw that, you're wowed by his physical abilities.
I was going to make a joke about Art Schleicher took plenty of shots at Ohio State that just weren't on the court.
Yes.
Anyway, best athlete I ever saw in high school, and this is an easy question for me, and I've been asked it before. I cut my teeth covering high school sports in the Washington, D.C. area. So that included suburban Maryland and Northern Virginia. And every year in the state playoffs, the Northern Virginia football teams would teams from other parts of the state, primarily Virginia Beach and the Norfolk Hampton Roads area produce the other football team. If you guys remember Percy Harvin, who played receiver at
Did we lose Dan?
I think we did.
Okay. Well, since he sold me out and he told everybody that I don't really go see that many basketball and baseball games, my pick of people would have to be a local guy that I saw that played different sports. It was Lynn Bowden from a few years ago, who was the Warren Harding standout, and obviously he was an unbelievable athlete in football. And recently with the Dolphins, and I think the Patriots are kicking the tires on him. But yeah, Dan's right. I might be an idiot savant for football, but that means I don't know much about other sports because I'm so focused on football. So my range in other sports is quite limited, and now everybody knows.
If Dan gets back, let me know via your cell phone, because I keep my cell phone in the other room while we're doing this because it creates some interference in here. So if he texts something, I'm not going to know it. Okay.
Yeah. But we're still live at 15 minutes. Do you have any of the other questions about 24 or from the fans we can answer now? Nope, I think he's back.
Yeah,
no, he's not.
Maybe.
There we go.
That was fun. In all the time we've done this, so this is I don't know how long the BM5 has been going. More than a decade. That's never happened before. My computer flashed some hieroglyphics and Chinese writing on there, and then shut down. But I'm back, and I will pick up where I left off. We were talking about greatest multi-sport athletes we've ever seen. I said Percy Harvin, state of Virginia. His junior year, he led Lansdowne High School and Virginia Beach to the state championship game in football, which they won. He had 476 yards of offense in the game and scored a touchdown, rushing, receiving, interception return, kickoff return, and one other way I can't remember. Then he led Lansdowne to the state championship in basketball. He was not even a basketball player. He was probably the second best guy on the team. To get to the state championship in the state of Virginia in the largest classification is virtually impossible. He did it. Then in the spring, he competed in track and field, and he was the first individual in 69 years to win 5 titles. He won the 100, the 200, the long jump, the triple jump, and ran the anchor in the 4x1. So that was a decent junior year. Now, he became so popular that football season, there were some issues, and then basketball season, he got into a tussle with another player during a game. There was so much interference, the Virginia High School League banned Harvin from interscholastic competition because they could not control the crowds. Okay, so he never got to defend basketball. He never got to defend any of his track titles. So his junior year, state championship in football, 5 touchdowns, 5 different ways, basketball state championship, and then in the spring, 5 titles in track. And by the way, I'm not kidding. I think he smoked cigarettes the whole time. He's got the scratchiest voice of anyone you've ever met. And really, the reason he got banned from the VHSL is because they had such issues with Allen Iverson a few years earlier that they were trying to get out ahead of it. And so that's where that went. And we all saw what he did for Urban Meyer at Florida. And there were times I thought Percy in the pros was the best player on the field at times. He enjoyed his off the court festivities, and that probably limited his career. But no question, the best three sport athlete I ever saw, and I don't think that'll ever be topped, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, that'd be hard to top that type of. That's an unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Bill, who do you rank as the top? Oh, we've done this one. We already did. Bill, Iowa, Indiana, and Michigan games coming up at the Shoe. Do we have big visitors scheduled for Iowa and Indiana? I assume there's going to be just an absolute red carpet list for Michigan.
Yeah, let me hit on a couple names for the Iowa and Indiana games first. The Iowa game, Carnell Tate is scheduled to make his official visit to Ohio State. And with all the talk about him visiting Tennessee this weekend, I think it's huge that he's making his official visit to Ohio State yet to go. He hasn't used that up yet, and that is scheduled for the Iowa game. So that is huge. That's the headliner I would mention for Iowa. Although Montrez Walker, he's a 2025 linebacker from Buford, and Buford is loaded. I mean, that's where Harry Miller played his high school football, and they're loaded moving forward. So, yeah, he's scheduled to be at the Ohio State Iowa games. That's 2 I mentioned for that. And the big one, Indiana-wise right now, is Arion Carter, the linebacker from Smyrna, Tennessee. And I did a piece on him last night on our site. I think his decision is going to likely come down to 3 schools. One of the fastest rising linebackers in the country. Ohio State would love to add him to the class. Jim Knowles went down to Tennessee on Monday, first day they're out on the road, stopped to see Carter. He's making his official visit to Ohio State for the Indiana game. I think his decision will come down to Alabama, Ohio State, Tennessee, although he's got some other schools in the mix. Alabama's the leader right now, but Ohio State and Tennessee, for that matter, when he makes their official visits to those 2 schools, are going to try to change his thinking. As you mentioned, it's going to be a huge weekend for Michigan. It'll be the red carpet type thing. That'll be mostly, though, for I shouldn't say Indiana. For the Notre Dame-Wisconsin game, there was some concentration, those games, obviously, on 2023 recruiting. with guys coming in like Mateo and Keon, Damon Wilson, that type. But for the Michigan game, that's traditionally, and it will be in this year, that's mostly when the end of the season, they're starting to focus their visitors on the 2024, the next class, 2024, 2025, and it'll be some great players. Of course, most of their commitments, many of their commitments will be at that Ohio State-Michigan game. Ryan Montgomery, the quarterback from Findlay, is scheduled to be there. Miles Lockhart, a defensive back 2024 from Arizona, is going to make the long trip. Jaden Parloti, a 2025 linebacker from Buford, is going to be there. Aaron Scott, Bryce West, we've talked about those two guys. They're going to be there. I think Ian Moore, their offensive line target from Indiana, from the state of, or I should say, from the class of 2024. So, I could go on with more and more, but those are some of the top guys that will be at the Michigan game. And that list will just grow and grow between now and then.
Mark, I'm not trying to ignore you here, but Bill, there's a ton of questions on here on the 3 defensive ends Ohio State is still in the mix for. Ironically, we were talking before the show. I just went to check it out. Yes, Ohio State has played the waiting game with Mateo Uiagalelei, Damon Wilson, and Keon Keeley. But if you look at the top 247, those are the top 3 rated edge prospects in the United States. So they're worth the wait theoretically. Bill, any new information on any of the 3 of them?
Well, one thing I'd say is that, to start with, is that, it's smart if you're Ohio State to play the waiting game on those 3. As you mentioned, Dan, they're the 3 top defensive edge guys in the country. They're 5-star guys, and smart because when you're Ohio State, if let's say they only get 1 or God forbid they don't get any of them, Ohio State does a great job of getting in on guys later. Devin Brown. Nobody was talking about Devin Brown at this time a year ago because Ohio State wasn't really recruiting him. Devin Brown ends up in the class. That's just one example. Ohio State is a school that can do that. You can wait on those guys, and if they don't fill their needs by the time those 3 guys decide, then they'll create options for themselves. They always do. Now, Mateo, he's probably going to wait. He's going to go the distance. Keon Keeley and Damon Wilson, I tend to think that within the next month, they probably will both decide. Keeley, it's down. Florida's still kind of in the picture, but Keon, it's down to Ohio State and Alabama basically. And right now, the next job or the next thing for Keon is getting his commitment date. He's going to announce a commitment date, then he'll go ahead and whatever date he picks makes his announcement. But I think Alabama has the edge right now, but I'm not ready to crystal ball him there yet. Let's get to the commitment date first and see what happens then leading up to that. I think with Damon Wilson, when he made his official visit to Ohio State, I wrote, and that's been several weeks, I wrote that this is going to be in all likelihood Ohio State and Georgia. That's what I was told. That's what I was hearing. Come down to Ohio State and Georgia. And that's where it is right now. It's Ohio State and Georgia right now. Alabama's not out of the picture, but right now it's Ohio State and Georgia. And right now it's too close to call. I've talked to some people on the Georgia side, and even they feel like, well, Georgia might be sitting in a decent position right now, but even they feel this one is too close to call right now between Ohio State and Georgia.
Yeah, Rusty Manziel covers the Georgia beat and is as veteran as it gets. And from what I read of his stuff, I think he has a slight lean towards Ohio State as of now. But as you said, that could go down to the wire. And like we said, top 3 guys, edge rushers. You don't want to say the national championship's going to be decided among those 3 guys' decisions, but it's going to be impacted because those are the elite players who tip the scales. Mark, this question from Warrior Buck is directed right to 3-1 fastball for Mark. Do you think Ohio not allowing spring football hurts the development of Ohio players? Obviously, compared to states that do have spring ball, Ohio produces a lot of Division I players. I believe we trail California, Georgia, Texas, Georgia, and maybe
Florida.
Louisiana.
Florida's the other one.
Florida.
Yeah, Florida, Texas, California, Georgia, and Ohio.
Yep. And I believe all those other states have spring football.
Yes. Without a doubt, it does hurt the development of players. This is right in my wheelhouse right now. I have a 12-year-old that did all the flag football, which is basically 7-on-7, right up till 12 years old. And then the OSHA pulls the plug on the 12-year-olds and say, once you start playing 7th grade football, no more extracurricular flag football leagues. Okay. So that means a spring ball or 7-on-7 teams are nixed in Ohio. That's a severe disadvantage. And there's a lot of reasons Ohio does it. There's 700 high schools in Ohio, a little more than that. And more than half of them are smaller schools where if they had spring football, it would essentially nuke the baseball program, the track program, where kids would be playing spring football and not be playing those other sports. So they never really formalized like a spring football like that to save the other sports, quite frankly. And then the other part of it is we've seen basketball go the AAU direction, where once basketball season is over, the real basketball season starts, where you're on the road with your big time players and big time games. And sometimes the AAU games draw the same crowds that, big time high school games. And a lot of the recruiting goes on through AAU. And I think if you asked high school basketball coaches, they've lost control of their players at some point. Yeah, Bill's over there raising his hand, where these players aren't even loyal to the high school coach anymore. They're more loyal to an AAU coach, or the AAU coach may have more pull or something. So it kind of dilutes the high school basketball. And I think that Ohio high school coaches had their head in the right place, saying, we don't want a football going that way, where as soon as football season's over, half our teams playing 7-on-7 football for different 7-on-7 teams. And down in Florida, I mean, the 2 Live Crew has a team. Snoop Dogg has a team. It's Nike has a team, and the money and the things like that. It gets shady, would maybe be a word, for these kids, and who can offer them the most money to get on their 7-on-7 team. So Ohio has the right idea of keeping it clean, but the developmental issue, and my son being a quarterback or a skill position player or a receiver, it's just brutal on those guys. They need more reps and more throws, and they can do it on their own, of course, but there's nothing that substitutes the team atmosphere and team development. And they've proposed different things, and a couple of days here and there where you could get together in the spring, and the coaches are making strides. And I don't mean to give a long answer. The Ohio high school coaches don't like it either. They don't like that their players aren't developed, but it's a real fine line before you say, hey, let's open up the floodgates and turn this into AAU 7-on-7 football.
I mean, I can see both sides of it. I guess there's somewhat of a, if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality going here. But and seriously, Ohio State doing as well as they do as a program without it in their state probably hurts the idea of doing it. If it was obvious that Florida and the other schools were taking advantage of it, but I don't know. It's a tough call. I can see where some of the coaches are coming from. Unfortunately, when I have drilled down on this, when I've asked coaches about this, this is even back when I was in Virginia, the problem is a lot of the guys who are just don't want to work year round. And so I don't blame you for not wanting to work year round for being a football coach. But if it's a 365 job somewhere else and you're not working 365, the idea that you're going to produce the same result is faulty. So I think there are probably enough guys now with the specialization that if you're going to become a coach, you're not doing it for the money, at least in the high school level in most spots. So,
unless you're in Texas. Unless you're a football
50
coach in Texas.
That's true.
Those guys are, my first year of high school teaching and coaching was an eye-opener. I was born and raised in Ohio, went down to Houston, Texas, and got my first teaching and coaching job. Walked into the 10,000-seat stadiums, and I don't mean bleachers. I mean stadiums down there. And this was, 40 years ago. It was like, oh my goodness. And I found out what some of the head coaches at some of these programs were making, and all their job was to be the head football coach and the athletic director for certain sports type. That was their job. They were not teaching classes. And I realized this is a whole new world down in Texas when it comes to football. It's one of the reasons I came back, by the way, is because I was a basketball coach first, and I did not like my sport basically being a distant second fiddle to football. New world down there at that point in my life.
So I have a good friend who coached basketball, won over 300 games in Virginia, and took a job in Houston at a private school. And he was good enough that he was named the McDonald's All-American coach with the East squad. He said in Texas, he's like, the priorities are completely changed. Football is the number one priority of the school above academics. Kids, there is an afternoon class for an hour. That's your varsity sport. So you get an extra hour of film time in the afternoon. And the most powerful people in the town, like you said, the highest paid people in the town are the football coach and the athletic director, often the same person. So, yeah, if you want to be, you want to run some Friday Night Lights and be like the guy in, Roadhouse and run yourself a town, that's the way to do it. Go to Texas. Spring football, they got summer football, they got Christmas break football, they got everything down there in Texas. All right, let's finish with this.
I was not, by the way, I wasn't married right out of college. I went down there, and it's a good thing I wasn't married, because I was the freshman football coach at a big high school in Texas, and just as the freshman football coach, my time expenditure on football was incredible. It was all school year long. You're doing something for the football program. Even as a freshman football coach, I think I would have been divorced if I had been married at that point after 1 year of teaching and coaching. I wasn't the head coach, so I had to teach too.
I imagine the football coaches are hot commodity down there too, Bill. So you never know. There's a little yin-yang action there.
I would not know about that.
Let's do this. How about you guys tell us where you're planning on going this weekend? I know Bill has some issues with the Guardians and the weather report, but let's have an idea of where you're going this weekend, and then maybe what you're expecting out of the Big Ten tilt between Michigan and Penn State.
Go ahead, Mark.
I haven't decided where I'm going. I'm trying to see if I should go see the quarterback at Bellefontaine and maybe double that up with the Springfield Wildcats. And I know Bill just saw them last weekend. Or do I go up to Winford and check out the big offensive lineman that was at the Ohio State camp? But once you head up the Winford territory, there's not much else to see up there. So it'd be kind of a lonely night as far as prospects goes. But that's kind of my job, is to get to some of these different places that aren't on your normal map and do the digging.
You want to see darkness? Drive between those towns late at night. When I used to be a high school reporter covering games like that back in the day, I'm not going to say you hear banjos, but you get freaked out a little bit. That's real dark. And
Yep.
Go ahead, William. Oh, sorry, Mark. No vibe on Michigan, Penn State?
The vibes from what I see and the highlights or whatever, I think Michigan, I think they're just a little hotter, coming off last year. And, Penn State, their back's kind of against the wall. So that, that may have something to do with it. I think they need to win this, but Michigan's rolling.
William?
My intention is to go down to Cincinnati for the, I think, 85th time this football season to Southwest Ohio. It seems like every weekend I think I am in either the Dayton or Cincinnati areas, because there are so many players there, and this year down there. But my plan is to go down and see Cincinnati Winton Woods and Jermaine Matthews tomorrow night. Looking forward to that. Jermaine Matthews, by the way, is having a great senior season. He has, I believe, 6 interceptions already, 3 of which he's taken back for touchdowns. Last week, he took one back 8, I think it was 90 yards for a touchdown. So that's my intention. As far as the Penn State Michigan game, I think if it was at Penn State, I would probably go with Penn State. But being that it's at Michigan, I'd probably give the edge to Michigan.
We shall see. I really thought Maryland had Michigan. There was a couple bad calls in that game and some chances at turnovers Maryland didn't get. And I haven't been that impressed with Michigan, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm just not a Clifford guy. So
I think I just want to see Michigan undefeated for the end of the year.
I agree with that. More drama, the better, and also probably better for your locking in your playoff position, although I think we're in good shape there. We appreciate Mark and Bill making time for us. I apologize for the technical difficulties. We will get on the IT team after this heavily. Everyone have a great weekend. Have a good one, Bucknutters.